Coming up on today's episode of the Money Pants podcast, what to do when you're stuck at home and your kids are driving you nuts. Does bribery work? We don't think so. The 5 possible strategies for dealing with misbehavior, and what's the secret to having your kids entertain themselves. But first, the joke of the day.
So a rich man dies and finds himself at Heaven's Gate, and he meets up with Peter. And Peter says, "I'm the gatekeeper? Well, what's your name?" And the guy says, "Oh, I'm Richie Rich." Peter looks him up and says, "Oh, you had a lot of money in life and you didn't use it very well. Matter of fact, you weren't very Christian at all. I'm going to have to send you down to hell." And Richie Rich goes, "Whoa, no, stop. No, I definitely want to be into heaven. I'll be right back." And Richie Rich goes down to earth and comes back and says, "Hey, Peter, I got something that might help you let me into heaven." And he shows up with this huge pile of gold. And Peter looks at Richie Rich disdainfully and goes, "You really think you could bribe me with pavement?" Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into episode 5 of the Money Pants podcast. We are your hosts, Hannah and Fontaine Judd, and we're the proud parents of 7 sons and 6 daughters, ranging in age from college student to toddler. We're both BYU graduates and the creators of Money Pants. Head on over to CaptainMoneyPants.com to learn more about what we do and what we're all about. Today's topic is stuck at home, kids driving you nuts. This is going to be a 3-part podcast because there's a lot to cover here. This is one of the main reasons actually that we developed Money Pants, was to kind of address these concepts of when the kids are kind of driving you nuts and you don't know what to do. So we want to talk. We want to kind of talk about, what to do during summer vacation when the kids are bored, or in this case, maybe you're stuck at home during quarantine, or pretty much any other situation when you are in close proximity to your kids and find yourself going a little cuckoo. So we broke it down. We think that there's like 3 main things to focus on, kind of 3 strategies that we find have been very effective with us, our kids, and our family. They are, so the 3 things are: first, nix the bribes. No more bribes. The second was don't over reward. And the third was the magic of individual time. And today's podcast, we're just going to focus on that first one, which is nix the bribes. So let's get right into it. Hannah, what is bribery? You had some thoughts on this.
Well, it's funny because a lot of times if I've had friends see me offering rewards to my kids, they're like, "Oh, you bribe your kids?" I do too. And I'm like, "No, I do not bribe my kids." And they're like, "Yeah, but you're giving them something so they'll be well behaved. That's bribing." And I'm like, no. It's not bribery. There's a difference between bribes and rewards. But a lot of people think they're the same thing when it applies to children.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that a ton. Where people say,
no.
"Oh, you just bribe your kids. Rewards are bribes. They're the same thing," and they're not.
Yeah. Well, for example, when you go to work and you work at your job and they pay you at the end of the week, that's not a bribe. That's a reward for your work. Mm-hmm. And it's an honest, straightforward deal. You worked. Here's the reward. We agreed on this. Let's go forward. That is not a bribe. And so, but people are kind of lumping bribes and rewards together, yet those are 2 separate things.
That's the thing I noticed, though. A lot of times when it comes to the family, for some reason people don't think the same principles apply.
Yeah, it's a different world.
I'm like, no, how you run a business or how you see the real world work, it should be exactly how you run your family.
A lot of the same principles, how you run a country, how you run your family.
The principles are the same. So a reward is a reward and a bribe is a bribe.
Yeah, the ethics are the same. So my husband and I were in an ethics class together after we got married. It's one of the last classes I took at BYU, was a media ethics class. And we learned about all the ethics of media, but we learned about bribery.
That was a great class, by the way.
And it was a fantastic class. It was one of the best classes I took. Anyway, part of the class, we were required to participate in an ethics bowl. And the ethics bowl, you would go up against other teams and they were supposed to, they were presented with a difficult situation and they had to pick what they thought was the most ethical solution. and promote that and convince the judges, who were just local business owners, that their approach was the most ethical one.
Right. So it was not, and this was part of the problem, it was set up like a forensics debate.
Yes.
But it wasn't, because
it wasn't supposed to be.
It was
You were
supposed to be, you're supposed to
pick
come up with the most ethical. So potentially both teams could argue for the same point.
Yeah, whoever argued it and explained it the best was supposed to be the winner, but you were supposed to pick the most ethical thing.
Anyway.
Well, some people, their teachers didn't explain this to them, and when they got to this ethics bowl,
They thought it was debate.
they thought it was speech and debate. And in speech and debate, a lot of times how speech and debate works is you're assigned a side, or you defend a side whether it's right or wrong.
Uh-huh.
And it's how well you can come up with an argument. So a lot of the kids that were participating were like, oh, this is speech and debate. Anyway.
Well, someone probably had been in speech and debate.
Now, it didn't really matter the first couple ethical things that we were faced. They were, because some of the things were a little foggy. But it was
like gray area.
Yeah, there were some gray areas, but it was a little bit frustrating because we're like, the judges don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be picking not who has the better argument, but who
has the better ethical.
Who has the better
position.
ethical position. And so it was a little frustrating. But finally, the last round that we were in,
and we did really well.
Yeah, it became blatant because it was about bribes and using bribery in business.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was blatantly right and wrong. And the team against us decided to make their arguments in favor of bribery. And we looked at each other, we're like, how are they going to justify bribery? And guess how they justified it? This girl got up and she said, well, parents use bribery all the time.
To bribe good behavior.
Good behavior from their kids. And it's used all the time and for a good purpose. And I was like, I was following along her argument. But then she caught me off guard when she said, that's why moms feed their kids breakfast in the morning. To bribe their kids to be well behaved for the rest of the day.
And I felt really bad, but when she said that,
my goodness,
I literally burst out laughing in the middle of the ethics bowl. I couldn't contain myself.
Yeah,
it caught me so off guard.
It caught me off guard
when she
too,
said that,
because
we
had such a frustrating day, and I was like, how in the world are they going to defend bribery? And it was, mom's feeding their kids breakfast in the morning. And I'm thinking, what mom feeds her kids breakfast saying, these little stinkers better be good today? That's why I'm giving them these Lucky Charms. I mean,
well, no, but also every time she would speak after that, I couldn't help but laugh. Because I couldn't take her seriously anymore. I'm like, I don't know. The problem was she doubled down though. She wasn't like, oh yeah, okay, I misspoke. I didn't really mean that. That parents bribe their kids with food.
No, she just went on with it about how that's why parents feed their kids breakfast, and it was this big bribe thing, and she was dead serious. Anyway, it just struck me as very funny.
And then afterwards,
but thankfully the judge got really upset, and he actually got up and chewed them out. And he's like, I can't believe we're here at BYU and we have kids here defending bribery. This is a problem in business and blah, blah, blah.
Well, no. Okay. So one of my professors at BYU, I not at the time, but years later, I was talking to him, and he had tried to go and do business in Russia. And he ended up leaving, as he said, with his tail tucked between his legs because of the sheer volume of bribery, dishonesty, and corruption. He literally could not do business in that country because of
that was a cultural norm.
The issue of bribery. I remember when I had the opportunity to travel, and I was actually in China, and I needed to ship some things back home. We had bought some really nice rugs at one of these outlets and some other nice stuff, and they wouldn't let us put it on the plane unless we bribed them. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so backwards. It made me very uncomfortable because it made me wonder, wait, what other things am I getting away with by throwing money at these people? And it made me wonder, what if they just said, oh yeah, we're not going to let you on the plane or leave our country unless you give us a certain amount of money. It was a little scary. It didn't happen, but it was a little disconcerting to me to see that bribery, how it could quickly be something very scary and very negative.
Yeah. The other day, one of my kids used personal money of theirs to go buy some ice cream cones, a package of ice cream cones from the grocery store. And
Blackstone?
Yeah, he became worried that a particular sibling of his might try to sneak and steal his ice cream cones.
Yeah, that's something we're working on.
And and we're working on it with this kid, but and so he was worrying about it on the way home from the grocery store. How am I going to make sure people don't take these without my permission?
So there were a bunch of cones in a box, like more than one serving?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was thinking about it, and he goes, I know, Mom. What if I give this person half of an ice cream cone right when I get home and ask them to please not take any of the other ice cream cones? And I said, no. That's bribery. So what is the difference?
Yeah. So
then?
okay. So we need to kind of define bribery, and I think the easiest way.
What is bribery?
The easiest way.
Why is it wrong?
Well, okay. So first question: what is bribery? Bribery versus rewards, because those typically get confused, especially amongst parents that we've talked to, as you said a moment ago. The easiest way I can define it is bribery is a reward before the desired action, whereas a reward is a something after.
In consequence of an action.
So the bribery is before and a reward is after. That's the easiest way for me to define it.
The one they worked for.
Yeah. Bribery, though, the dictionary definition is payment or otherwise rewarding for a behavior before an action is completed, typically for something unsavory.
Yeah.
So bribery has the connotation of being criminal in nature.
Yeah.
Or otherwise not good.
So if someone is misbehaving, like in the example that I just gave, where somebody is maybe having an issue with stealing and they're engaged in a criminal behavior, and you're giving them something, oh, please don't do this to me, please don't hurt me, please don't harass me, and you're giving them something because they're doing something bad or threatening to do something bad. And so you're giving them money or
like a preemptive reward.
Yeah. Hey, please leave me alone. Don't hurt me. Don't
steal from me. Don't
steal
take my
from me.
stuff.
Don't take my stuff. It's a bribe. It's for because they were doing something unsavory, something criminal, unsavory, threatening.
What's the Godfather line on? I make him an offer he can't refuse. That sort of thing where you're giving something, or in this case, threatening something before an action takes place. It's criminal. It's by definition.
You're being held hostage.
Well, I think the term is appeasement.
Yeah.
Where you're giving something, and it's not quite the same as appeasement, but it's giving in.
Yeah.
To some bad behavior.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. And it's actually the opposite of a reward.
So let's use a grocery store example. That's a common, situation where you're at the grocery store. Your hands are kind of tied.
And the kid starts throwing. Okay, so I got this. So the kid starts throwing a tantrum.
Yeah, or misbehaving, running around, acting nutty,
or throwing things off the shelves.
Store. Yeah.
And so you go, hey, here's a pack of M&Ms. Eat them.
Eat them. Just behave, okay? Please, just behave for 10 more minutes.
So that's bribery because the kid is actually actively acting up. And you're giving them something that they want.
Asking them to please not do what they're doing.
Before the behavior that you want.
Yeah.
So the second, though, is maybe you're at the well, okay. So that's bribery.
That's bribery.
By definition.
So how would you reward? The reward.
Better would be to tell the kid when they're acting up, go over to the stand and grab some M&Ms and say, hey, Billy, you're acting up. I don't like that. I don't want that. I want you to, stay next to me, hold on to the cart, have good behavior. And if you can do it for 5 minutes, I'll set my 5-minute timer here on my phone. You can have these M&Ms.
You can earn one of the M&Ms from this package.
For every minute.
5 minutes that
whatever.
go by, you'll get an M&M. But if you misbehave, I'm going to start the timer over again.
So that's
a reward.
Right.
All of a sudden it's reframed. You're not being held hostage by them anymore.
Right.
They're having to perform a behavior or a work or help you out in some way that's an honest deal where they're having to
what's
put
clearly
forth.
set up.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing.
But that's rewarding.
And that's better than bribery. But here's the best. The best scenario is before you even go to the store, you pull Billy aside and say, "Hey, Billy, would you like some M&Ms?" And he'll be like, "Yeah." I'll tell you what.
You can earn some.
I have some right here, or we'll buy them when we get to the store or whatever. We'll get you some M&Ms, and if you can go the whole trip being a helper to me, you can have the whole bag. That's the best scenario because it's set up well beforehand, before the undesired behavior even starts. That's the ideal.
Yeah, because otherwise they could get the message of, well, I misbehaved, so then mom and dad set up this thing. So,
but that goes right into the Wall Street Journal article that we just read. What, last week? This week was that?
It was last week. Yeah.
Where it was talking about parents who are quarantined and
for the COVID-19 thing,
and they're going crazy.
Yeah, they're with their kids. The kids aren't in school, and
the kids are home.
The parents are having to work from home.
So it's like a double whammy. The parents
they're worried
are
about
working,
losing their jobs.
Well, no. The parents are at home all day because they're working at home, and the kids are home. Normally, it's like during summer vacation, the kids are home, but the parents are off at work, or maybe the parents work from home, but the kids are off at school. But no, now it's the kids are home and the parents are home, and they're kind of going crazy. They're like, what do I do? And there was the one dad who had this big schedule all lined up. And it totally fell apart. Mm-hmm. And then he made a revised schedule, and that didn't work. And finally, he resorted to, I think, hey, here's $100. Go away. Leave me alone for the day.
I just need like 8 hours. Go away.
I got to get my work. I'm going to lose my job. I got to get my work done. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of parents are, where they're kind of faced with this new reality, and they don't know what to do about it. They're in the store, the kid's acting up. And they're like, what do I do? Here's some M&Ms. At least the kid will be quiet.
Yeah, at least for 5 minutes while they're eating the M&Ms.
And that's where a lot of parents are finding themselves. They're finding themselves stuck in that situation, and it's really frustrating.
They're desperate.
And
they're in a desperate situation.
And that's why
hey, this works.
And that's why bribery is happening. Yeah. And that's why it works, because it does. That's the problem. That's the problem, is bribery does work
initially.
For the first time, maybe two.
Yeah.
But then it does not work long term. And that's really what we're trying to address here, is that what's the long-term solution? Because anybody who's been watching the news knows, hey, this lockdown, this quarantine's going on for at least
another month, and all of a sudden
at least a few more weeks.
In the article, the parents were like, another mom was like, okay, my daughter used to love Frozen too, and she's watched it so many times she doesn't want to watch it anymore. And now we're watching all the stuff on Disney Plus, and we've watched everything, and now I'm letting her watch shows that are really stupid and annoying, and we're running out of things for her to watch. And this announcement just came that this is going to go on
for another month.
Yeah,
and so parents really are kind of going nuts. The bribery thing
doesn't work for a long-term situation.
It's not a long-term solution.
And because what happens when you bribe your kid, let's say they're not getting their homework done, mm-hmm. they're making a mess, they're making all sorts of noise while you're on business calls, and they're getting into trouble, they're breaking things, who knows what. So you give them the $100 and say, hey, cut it out just for 8 hours.
Uh-huh.
Well, what message did they just get?
Okay, so that's a huge question. What are you teaching your children with that action of handing them $100? Please leave me alone until I can finish this work, or just leave me alone for 8 hours. What does that teach your kid? I have all the power.
I have the power.
I could extort my parents for hundreds of dollars every time I want something. I just act up. So you're literally, as a parent, and I don't think anybody thinks about this, but you're literally, as a parent, teaching your kids to misbehave. You're teaching your kids to extort, and you're teaching your kids
to harass you,
to hold you hostage.
Yeah.
And that is, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, unless you're training your kid for some sort of military operative where they go out and they torture people, I'm pretty sure that's not your goal, to teach your kids to do that. Where I don't think any parent wants to teach, hey, I'm training my kids to torture me. I'm training my kids to drive me up a wall. Oh, I'm so good at it. Watch this. I don't think most parents are up for it. They want, but they don't realize it, and they're in a desperate situation, so that
they're just thinking of the short term. I got to get this done. What works? This will work. But they're not thinking about, oh, what about tomorrow? And what did I just teach my kid? That, hey, if you misbehave, I'll give you stuff.
Yeah,
that's
the key. What did I just teach my kid? I actually taught them. I'm rewarding bad behavior. I'm encouraging and enabling bad behavior. The opposite of what I as a parent want to do.
Well, I mean,
and the kid too. The kid doesn't feel good about themselves manipulating their parents like that, but they're kids. And that's what they do. That's why they have parents. That's why they need parents to make sure that doesn't happen. So anyway, it's bad all the way around.
Well, yeah. Think of the situation at Blackstone where he was considering giving a sibling half an ice cream cone.
We failed as parents.
Yeah. He was considering giving a sibling half an ice cream cone.
We've taught our kids to bribe.
And I told him, no, you can't do that. That's not good.
So
it's a teaching process. But anyway,
I feel better now.
But what would happen next time he bought a treat?
So yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Like if he had given his sibling the half an ice cream, saying, "Hey, I'll give you this half ice cream, and if you don't eat the rest of them, what's the sibling going to think next time?"
Wait, there were 8 in the box.
I could probably get a whole one next time.
Maybe I could get 2 or half of them.
Maybe you know what? Tell you what, give me half of them.
I'm going to tax you.
And I won't eat the rest. Yeah, it's a really bad. It's a slippery slope. It's a bad precedent. It's just a bad. Bribery is bad all the way around. It's really hard to argue in favor of bribery from any ethical standpoint. It's hard.
Yeah. The important thing is to realize, to clearly define in your mind the difference between rewards and bribery. Rewards you work to earn from doing good things.
Right. And bribery is a reward given before.
Yeah, because you're being threatened.
Yeah, because of bad things. Giving a reward because of bad things beforehand. So, I think a strategy to kind of circumvent that would be, as we already mentioned, you got to get ahead of it. In order to avoid resorting to bribes, you've got to get ahead of the behavior. You've got to, like in the store, set it up ahead of time. That's the best. That's the ideal. We talk about, bribery is kind of like dealing with the drinking problem once the person's already drunk. That's not the time to address the drinking problem. When the person is drunk, that's not the time to sit down and go, okay, well, Bill, we see you have a drinking problem. Let's come up with a strategy to fix it. That's not the time. The time to deal with the drinking problem is before the drinking begins. Same with any behavior problems or running the home. The time to set that up is before you go to the store, or before the day begins, or at the beginning of the week, before the stress of the work week begins.
You don't want to get into a desperate situation.
Right. And avoiding desperation, that's the key.
And you don't want to, you want to have things set up so hopefully you can avoid the desperate situation where you feel you're in a corner, something really bad's going to happen if you don't, give whoever whatever they want. So you want to try to avoid that by setting things up ahead of time. Because once you are in a situation like that where, hey, I've got to get this done, but this is going on, you have a set of options. You can bribe. Can bribe.
That is an option.
You can threaten. Because sometimes a lot of times after parents have, where they realize, okay, the bribes are getting ridiculous. I've given my kid $1,000 and they're still acting up. And
they have their PlayStation and their TV and their YouTube and their video games.
Yeah, and they're just being a monster.
Still driving me nuts.
Then you can, you can switch over to threatening. And just,
and sadly, we've actually seen some reports about that where that's gotten out of hand. Where in this situation, because parents unfortunately that is something they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do.
They're really desperate. There's high stress levels, and
we'll talk about a solution for that here in a second.
You can reward. You can set up rewards,
you
can set up punishments, and you can manipulate. You can say, I sure wish you loved me enough to stop doing this.
Guilt
You
trips.
can put him on a
Yep,
guilt trip. And that works sometimes. For certain kids, that works.
Oh, yeah.
But just because it works, is it the right thing?
No, that's just it. Like,
no.
well, no, bribery works too. So do threats.
No,
all of these work.
I'm gonna lose my job.
But what we're about, yeah, and I can't I can't buy you that new car that you want.
Too bad. I sure wish you loved me.
Yeah, the love thing. I love that.
So we prefer the more straightforward option of using if.
But why?
Then.
Hold on. But why do we prefer the straightforward?
Because it takes the emotion out of it.
No.
Well, part of it,
no,
because
it's all about the relationship.
Yeah.
You don't want to damage the relationship with your children. You want a good relationship with your kids. Everybody does.
Yeah.
That's what you want. You want a good relationship with your children. And when you manipulate, when you bribe, when you threaten, those are all negative aspects of your relationship. And I don't think people step back to think about, wait, what am I teaching my kid by doing this? I'm damaging the relationship. And so we believe that the open, honest, straightforward communication is the best. And the way to do that is the whole if then. Okay, so go ahead.
If then. And so if then is if you decide, and because your kids make choices. Mm-hmm. They're individuals. They're human beings. They have their free agency.
What?
They make choices.
What? They're not humans.
You can't control them, but you can reward them or punish them based on what they decide to do. So if you say, if you decide to help me out here, or if you decide to get your homework done, we're going to watch TV when we're done with work today.
Then we'll watch TV.
We'll watch an hour of 24. We'll watch your favorite TV show. We'll watch it tonight if we all get our work done. Mm-hmm. If then. And you can do the same thing with punishments. If you decide to make noise and I have to get off of my phone call, then,
Right.
Again,
you're setting it up ahead of time. Yeah. If you get your homework done, then
so there's positive consequences.
There's a reward. If you
decide not to, this, and then
we won't.
We had
and that
we
concept.
had one daughter who was fiercely independent and loved testing all the boundaries.
She was the raptor from Jurassic Park testing the fence for weaknesses.
She drove all her the only teachers in elementary school that could handle her were teachers who were very experienced and very strict.
And unemotional.
And they just knew to follow through and would not be manipulated. And they were the only ones she would respond to, where she would progress.
Well, she'd actually thrive.
Yeah, she'd thrive. But if she found a weak point in this where you said this, you didn't really mean it, or if I do this, I can get around it, or she would find their weak points, and drove a couple of her teachers crazy, literally. Anyway, so I had to learn manipulation did not work. Mm-hmm. Threatening her did not work. No. Punishments, just punishing her, did not work. Mm-mm. All I could do was say, if you decide to do this, I will do this. Mm-hmm. If you decide to do this, I will do that. And that was the best I could do, was hand that to her and say,
and then leave it up to her.
You decide.
It was up to her. And she loved the freedom of knowing it was her choice.
If you want to go to the Halloween party, you need to take a nap. If you, or there can't be any fighting, or we will go home. Uh-huh. And so I had to learn to not make consequences I wasn't willing to follow through with.
Oh, that's a key.
And I had to follow through. If I said, hey, we're going to the park. If you do this, we'll stay for an hour. If you do not, we will leave. And a couple times, I had to leave after 5 minutes.
But did she trust you after that?
Yes.
She knew that mom meant business. And you weren't mean about it. I remember this. You weren't mean about it. You're like, oh, I'm sorry you chose to fight at the park with that little boy.
I tried not to be mean about it. I know I lost my temper sometimes.
Well, no, but when you were on top of it.
But yeah.
I'm sorry that you chose
you made that decision. But it was back on her and what decisions.
Let's head on home.
What she was willing to do.
Yeah, remember what we said. If you fought, and maybe you'd even have her quote it. What did we say? Oh, if I fight, we go home. Yeah. That's a real bummer because I know you were really looking forward to
Yeah.
being here at the park. But hop in the car, sweetheart. We'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. And so
And she
that
responded
was
well.
the
Here was the great thing
only
about that, though.
It worked.
You didn't damage the relationship.
Yeah.
And she knew that the onus was on her. The responsibility was on her. You weren't the bad guy. She could blame nobody but herself. She had agreed to this ahead of time. And that's what we're talking about, where you have to set this up ahead of time.
Yeah,
So-
but for kids who are very independent, and if you have one like that, you know who you are. Because some parents, I meet their kids, and their kids have personalities where they're like they're barely alive.
Slug.
So they may not know what I'm talking about, but if you have that special kid who is fiercely independent or
if you have more than
loves
a couple of kids,
push your buttons,
you're more likely to have one of those.
Yeah. So anyway, that was putting the decision back on to the responsibility and the decision back onto your child and going, okay, you have choices. Here are the choices. Here are the consequences.
Yeah, but it has to be set up ahead of time. So what we suggest is at the beginning of the week, maybe Sunday or Saturday or Monday morning or whenever before your work week begins, get the family together, sit everybody down and say, hey, this is what's going on. You guys are stuck at home. I know you're miserable. I'm stuck at home. I'm miserable, but I got to get work done. You guys got to get schoolwork done. There's things, the house has to be run. And that's the other thing. The house is going to be even more messy.
Yeah, if you're not home during the day, it doesn't get as messy. When you're home, it gets really messy really fast.
Get the family on board and call it a family council or an emergency meeting or a cabinet meeting or whatever you want to call it and say, hey, get everybody on board and say, this is what needs to happen. Here are the jobs that need to happen. Here are the assignments that need to happen. Here are the tasks that need to happen. And get everybody's input as to who needs to do what and when and where and how. And then write it down.
Yeah.
And then set up rewards where, and I'm not going into detail yet, but make sure that what you want to see happen is clearly defined.
Then what?
And the rewards are clearly defined.
Yeah.
Once you do that, so let's kind of go into specifics. Like what we suggest would be like create a list of daily chores or activities for each person, separate. So, for instance, and we suggest 10 activities a day. That's a nice round number. So we say like, okay, brush your teeth and get ready for the day. That's one. Read your scriptures and pray. That's another. Make your bed. That's another. Do your math or your English or your history video or your science. Do basketball or soccer practice
Singing.
for 20 minutes. Practice singing or piano or violin for 30 minutes. Be a peacemaker. And if that's a problem, say be a peacemaker from 9 to 11 and from 11 to 1 and from 1 to 3. Make each one of them a separate little thing that you reward for. And then post one thing positive on social media or whatever.
Yeah. So, and maybe have it so there's some rewards at lunchtime and then there's some rewards at 5 o'clock when the workday's over.
And the thing is, though, that whatever task, and this is a total different topic, but whatever tasks you come up with, they have to be actively doing something. They can't be don't do something. So you can't make a task of don't fight, because what are they going to do? All they're thinking about is I don't fight. And what are they thinking about? They're thinking about fighting. So it has to be something like be a peacemaker or do an act of service or find a positive thing that they can do, not something that they can't do.
You notice like with kids, if you tell them not to do something.
What do they do?
Yeah, that's all they can think about is the thing they're not supposed to do.
Don't touch the emergency brake.
Oh, man. Instead of saying don't go over there.
I got to touch the emergency brake.
For kids, it works better to say go over there.
Yeah.
Instead of saying don't go over there. It works better to tell them, no, go play over there. Go do that. Go do that. Go do that.
Make a list of things you can accomplish.
Yeah. So that works better. And a lot of people understand that concept of instead of telling the kid, no, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, you say, go do this, go do that.
But when you're in a stressful situation, sometimes you forget these things.
Yeah.
When you're in the stress of being quarantined and it's all kind of thrust upon you and parents are in this, excited state, they forget the things that they knew before. So maybe just a quick, simple reminder of, hey, don't forget, make sure that you do positive things. But then once you've set up that list of things, as you just said a second ago, attach rewards, where maybe it's a reward to begin with, maybe it's a reward every hour, where, oh, you did your 1 hour of homework, thank you, you get a lollipop, or you get a certain number of jelly beans, or you get a half hour of screen time, or whatever. And then halfway through the day, if you've accomplished at least 4 of your tasks, you get an hour of game time on your PlayStation or whatever, or you get 30 minutes of Instagram or InstaTwit, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, if you've gotten at least 75% of all your stuff done, then you get ice cream after dinner, or whatever. But set up a whole bunch of rewards, especially to begin with, so the kids know that you're going to follow through, and that these rewards are real. So then that develops that kind of that trust of they're going to get the reward for themselves, but also you're trustworthy and you're going to deliver those rewards. And then as time goes on, then you can kind of space the rewards out a little more. But to start off, there have to be a lot of rewards.
Regarding, because we're saying if then, and you're setting up consequences, one thing we've noticed is that rewards work way better than punishments. Now we will do a podcast on that. We will do a podcast on that.
There
have to be punishments sometimes. Sometimes that's necessary. You tell your kid, hey, don't play in the street. You're going to get hit by a car. They keep doing it. They're going to die. Finally, you might have to say, hey, look, I am going to give you a spanking. If you do that again, you're going to die. Sometimes punishments are necessary when you've tried everything and nothing else works.
Right.
You do have to have those in place. And people who say, oh, you should never punish your kids, that's actually not practical. I mean, if you think God is the ultimate father, he has rules for his children, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are this, but he also has the thou shalt nots. And, he has his rules set up. Don't do this. If you pay your tithing, there's this blessing. If you got to do this, there's this blessing.
If you serve other people, there's this blessing. Yeah.
But if you lie, you're going to go to hell.
If you hurt little kids.
If you hurt little kids, it's
there's
not good.
There's that whole millstone around the neck thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you set things up, but generally speaking, focusing on the rewards helps motivate people
it's infinitely
better.
Infinitely more effective.
Yeah. And because one thing I noticed is that at dinner time, when you sit down at dinner, a lot of times I have hypoglycemia. And I start getting real hangry right around dinner time.
Hangry.
And so I'll be like, oh, you're going to have to do this. If you don't cut it out, quit poking your kid, your sibling under the table. Quit doing this, quit doing that. Or this is going to happen. You're going to have to wipe the table. What I noticed when I do that is that the kids would, they're poking their sibling under the table. They'd do just what they could get away with to bother their sibling without actually getting in trouble. But they'd kind of keep at it, but see what they could get away with. They'd be there on the border.
Test the boundaries.
Yeah, they test the boundary and be there on the boundary. Where my husband would come in all jolly and he'd say, okay, who wants quick points? Whoever has good manners. All of a sudden, the kids who had been, poking at each other and, really pushing things I was getting really frustrated with, they'd be sitting up straight at their places, their hands folded. Why, Father, could I help set the table? Why, would you like me to pass you the salt? And all of a sudden, they would be like pushing the limits on how well behaved they could be when there was a reward being offered.
Versus a punishment.
Yeah, punishment, they would back off just enough to not get punished. Whereas a reward, they would be going above and beyond to try to earn stupid reward,
But that was a big lesson for us where we realized the difference that kids react to rewards way more positively,
generally speaking,
than punishments. And we will cover that.
There are always exceptions.
we will definitely cover that in a future podcast.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of get back to the whole, and let's wrap up the whole bribery thing, where bribery, bad, rewards and consequences, good. I think, again, when you get the whole family together, you got to get everybody's input. you got make sure you kind of whatever list you come up with, try to keep it balanced and reasonable. Don't be like, okay, well, today, if you want to watch TV, you got to memorize the dictionary or you got to memorize the encyclopedia letters A through G. Okay, that's not realistic. That's not a realistic goal. Or you have to finish all of your history homework in 15 minutes. Or if you want to have dinner tonight, no, don't do goals like that. And typically don't do goals that include a punishment. Do goals and your list should be a whole bunch of things they can accomplish and that they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
The definition of leadership, getting people to do what they don't want to do in order to accomplish what they want to accomplish. That whole idea. You're the parent. You're trying to get your kids to, become who they really want to be. This also applies to when you find yourself resorting to bribery. A surefire way to get rid of that is to use if-then. If you're using a lot of if-then statements, you're not bribing anymore, because now your kids are, you set up a requirement for an action, and then you're setting up a reward for that desired behavior. And that's definitely not bribery.
Yeah. And a lot of times the lack of reward is the punishment, where you're like, oh, I'm sorry, the time's up. Hey, maybe next time. Exactly. But I still love you, and hey, but still keep with it. You don't have to be angry at them. The reward or the lack of the reward speaks for itself,
right?
And it doesn't change your relationship.
And that's really, the relationship.
Yeah,
that's what we're all about.
So the last thing that I wanted to point about bribery is a lot of times parents who bribe all the time to try to are trying to get their kids out of the way. They're constantly entertaining their kids. And really what they're doing is they're bribing their kids, but they're like entertaining them. And so what they'll find is during
reward.
Summer vacation or their kids are bored. Their kids are always complaining about being bored. And the mom or dad are constantly having to entertain their kids. Oh, we're going to go do this. Oh, and you're constantly having to up it where, I've already done that. I don't want to do that. Find something else.
We all know kids like that you invite, hey, you want to go to the water park with us? Nah. Not unless it's that new fancy one over in San Dimas.
And you're like,
wait, what?
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, you've met kids. I know we've invited kids over before to come over and play, and they want to be entertained.
No, they don't insist,
know how.
They demand on being entertained. And so what we suggest is there's an easy cure for that too. Put them to work.
Put them to work. Have them start earning things. And what you'll find is if it's summer vacation or lockdown, quarantine, whatever, is if you have your kids accomplishing even just a little bit of work every day, with academic work, household chores, that sort of thing, when they finally do get free time, they are totally, they're out of there. They're ready to entertain themselves, and they don't come bugging you saying, I'm bored. Because you go, oh, really? I need the windows. And all of a sudden, they can think of so many great things to do. But if they don't have that daily work and things that they're working on and accomplishing, so instead of thinking of, hey, if your kids are bored and saying, I don't have anything to do, I'm bored, that's not a message for you to start entertaining. That is a message of they need some work to do. And as soon as you give them work, I promise you, they will entertain themselves for the rest of their free time. Yep. And it's amazing how it works. I don't know that I have it defined why it works, but it works. If they have work to do, hey, you know what? We're not doing anything fun. You got to get this done, this done, this done, and this done, and this done. By the time they're done doing all the things that they need to do, they're ready to go entertain themselves, and they don't need your help anymore.
Or they're worried you're going to give them more jobs.
Or, yeah, I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, maybe while they're working, they start thinking of all the things they could be doing instead.
There's that phrase, I'm going to butcher it here, but it's something like, doing nothing is the hardest work of all because you can never take a break.
Yeah.
And that's where, kids, they
don't enjoy
vacation,
the downtime.
They hate it. Yeah, when they have nothing to do.
Because they don't have the contrast of working. So the biggest favor that you can do for your kids during that time to help them not feel depressed or bored is to give them work and assignments say, oh, I want you to work on Spanish every day. Oh, I want you to practice your piano or learn this or watch. For some reason, that makes it so that their free time is enjoyable. Otherwise, their free time becomes a monotony. So,
okay.
Anyway,
that's all the time we have. Next time, though, we're going to cover the other two topics in connection with this overall topic of, stuck at home with your kids or at summer vacation or whatever, where we're going to talk about making sure that you don't over-reward and then the magic of individual time.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about those because those are both awesome topics. But we're out of time for this one, so we're going to have to sign off. Enjoy another amazing musical cue from the inestimable Falcon Jasper. We'll see you next time.